Hello, everyone. Welcome to Briar Haus Writes. I'm Becky Parker, and today it is my honor to be able to have with us the incredibly talented Kristen Baum. Kristen is amazing. She's written over 40 film scores for filmmakers around the world. She is a Sundance Composers Lab Fellow, as well as a poet, editor, and many other hats that she wears. So, Kristen, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Becky. It's so fun to be in conversation with you.
Kristen, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay, such a big question. Um, I am, what would I say? I'm very interested in lots of different types of creativity, and I don't think I'm able to pin myself down to one. I'm always exploring a lot of different things, and gosh, where would I say that started? I would say it started in childhood. And I would say both of my parents, in different ways, kind of contributed to that. My dad was a professor. When I was a little girl, he was doing a PhD in radio and television broadcasting. And so I got to be on sets when I was a little girl and be an extra. I can remember being in a space show and, sitting in a corner playing with some little toy. And I remember being just absolutely delighted by the fact that the lead actor had worn a sweater the same color as the set. So every time he walked onto set, this part of him disappeared. And I just thought that was just fantastically fun and wonderful. So I'm delighted by very curious, strange things. And and I just love exploring new avenues of creativity. And I would say the ones that have stuck are music, which I started piano when I was 7 years old. I was asking for piano lessons. My mom, when I was an adult, very kindly told me that I was never a natural at the piano. Um, but the beautiful thing about that, Becky, is that it doesn't matter if you're natural or not. If you really love it and you keep going with it, that part doesn't matter. It is all about your interest in it and how much time you spend doing it. So I love piano. I love music. I went on to get a master's in music theory and composition. And I do that, but I equally love storytelling. And so I write stories and I write poetry. And I know we want to talk about fridge poems, as I call them, fridge poems. It sounds like such a kind of everyday little mundane thing, but I've turned it into something that is um, it allows me to reveal layers of myself that I would not be able to do if I had a pen in hand or if I were typing into my computer or anything. It just allows me, fridge magnets allow me to get myself out of the way and just let the fun come out and the playfulness come out, which is so much a part of my personality.
Well,
That's
I
kind of
would definitely like to talk to you about your fridge poems because I saw a picture of you actually doing that, and I was so fascinated by that concept because I don't know of anyone else who does fridge poems. So, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that, where you got your magnets, and just the inspiration that led you to coming up with some beautiful work.
okay. All right. So let me do this. I will take you back to two different points in time. The first one was when Joseph and I first got married. My aunt, Ruthie, just loves showering me with gifts. And one of the things that she sent me was a little set of fridge magnets. And they have the little words printed on them. And I just had them kind of living on the fridge. And, people who would come through the house would play with them, people that came to parties, little messages, probably like a magnet or two went home with people. I would guess. And then forward into time when we got our stay-at-home orders for the COVID-19 pandemic. And, you know, um, Becky, I know that was very, very devastating for a lot of people. And a lot of people died from it. And um, a lot of people are extroverts and had a really hard time staying at home and being by themselves. I know a lot of people got pets, and I am more of an introvert, and I was very happy to stay at home. And I was living in Los Angeles with my husband at that time. And I have to say, it just was like the most thrilling thing for me because Los Angeles has this level of noise that's similar to New York's. You know, it just is like the ground level noise is just a lot higher than it is in rural settings or even in suburban settings. And I feel that very, very acutely in my body. And so sometimes I need to take myself out of a city situation so that I can let myself just kind of calm down, you know, my nervous system calm down. So, so when everyone got sent home, the ground level noise went way, way down. And it was so beautiful, so calm. So I started writing some more music. I wrote some art songs. I finished some piano solos that I had started in earlier years and just hadn't had, I don't know, the time or the inclination or the impetus to sit down and say, okay, now what is this idea and how do I work it out to its completion? By December, I was kind of casting about for something that I could do that would be different from the other things that I was doing. So I was doing online poetry workshops and all kinds of stuff. So I just got this idea that I wanted to start kind of playing with more magnets. And so I went online. Let's see, I think magneticwords.com might be the place that I went. And I ordered a few sets. I do think that they multiply. I love that you laugh right at that moment because they do. They sort of fed my obsession, if you will. So I got a Grimm's set, a Poet Lovers set, a book set, and maybe 5 or 6 to start off. And I had a little kind of tin that I could do them on. So I took everything and I just started sitting. You probably saw a picture of me at my fridge,
I
right?
did. Hmm.
Yes. Yeah. With my little red hat on. Yes.
I
Yeah.
think so. I'm not sure about the hat, but
Okay. Yeah.
you were moving objects.
Yes, I was moving objects. Yes. And the objects just happened to be like different sized little, you know, word magnets. And it was really, really fun how it started off. Um, so I started off just doing generic things. But um, a few years before this, I had started doing classes in like learning fairy tale and folklore and kind of deep diving into that. And fairly shortly after I started doing that, the fairy tales started coming into the poems, and I started doing like a series. So my first series was Little Red Riding Hood and how she talked back to the wolf. And it I just had a fun time, and I was really into just kind of cracking myself up and just posting these frivolous little nonsense things, I thought, on um on Facebook, and just sharing them on Facebook just for my entertainment, for my friends' entertainment, you know. And someone from Enchanted Conversation, which is now called Fairy Tale Magazine, um got on there, and she said to me, "What are you doing posting these on Facebook? Like, these are amazing. Like, you should be doing something more and different with them." And I thought, oh, okay, so she thinks there's something. I did 12 Dancing Princesses and a number of things that I did, just a series. And the truth is, I didn't know what would happen in like the next day's kind of thing. I just would, you know, like slap something up on the fridge, make myself giggle, pull out all the extra lines.
Hmm.
And then it was really interesting because I think you've probably seen some of my poems from
Hmm.
that. Yes. And you know that in the margin, there's stuff, right? Yeah. And that was one of the things that people started looking for very early on and started commenting on early on. And that it was really instructive for me. that was interesting to them. So I would frame it so that here's the poem, and then there's all this kind of what I would call like the sassy fairy chorus talking back to the poem, And I would say being a little bit snarky or a little bit kind of off the cuff and just saying whatever, and taking fairy tales and saying, um, oh, don't take yourself quite so seriously. Or, you've got a bit of funniness there, or what's up with that? Which is a question that is like kind of core to me. Like, what's up with that is one of the things that I say a lot of the times for our culture or for like what we do, like how we live, and, right?
In general.
In general.
Life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I channeled all of that sort of, I would say, kind of maybe frustration or maybe just pointing, like shining a spotlight on things that I think are just extraordinarily, um, I would say wrong, or we just accept it as human beings. And why do we accept it? And so that kind of played into what was going on in these poems, and my audience feeding back to me helped me to form this style of poetry. So, and then the other thing that I did, if I couldn't get a word from a magnet itself, I would start stacking them up so that I could spell the words using stacks of magnets. And sometimes I had like 5 and 6 of them stacked up to get the word, which I also found to be very, very fun, because what else was I going to do with a stay-at-home order? You're not going out, you're not seeing friends, nothing. Having all of the extra time, because when you live in LA, you're going to spend a lot of time in your car going places. So what would I do if I were in my car? I would be either listening to an audiobook, or I would be singing at the top of my lungs, which is what I was doing when I got in an accident at one point. It wasn't
Oh
my
no.
fault, but if I had not been thinking about Sarah Bareilles and Love is Christmas, I might have had an awareness that somebody ran the light, and I might have been able to stop before they crashed into my car.
Were you hurt?
I was, yes,
Oh
yeah. I
no.
hit my head and I kind of got a little bit disoriented and stuff.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yes, yeah. And he fled the scene, and a bicyclist chased and got his driver's or his car license and stuff like that. Big excitement living in LA. But yeah, so all of that time that I would normally be in a car,
Right.
I started spending at home, just pouring creativity out, just playing, entertaining myself. And that's really, I would say, become instrumental in what I do and how I do it now after pandemic. Everything changed, didn't it?
It did. And one of the things that, now that it's over, I read that you are a collaborator with a wonderful person by the name of Janine Peibel. Am I saying that right?
Bible, yes, yeah.
And you've been awarded a collaborative residency at Oregon State University. So tell us a little bit about how did that come about?
It's so amazing because it was such a kind of fluke thing. So this happened before pandemic, and in gosh, probably 2015 or 16, we were going to the LA Times Festival of Books, my friend Janine and I. And she and I were just, we'd wander around. We would, of course, go and see Kate DiCamillo because we love her. And we would just wander around and see the authors who were giving talks at that point. And then we'd have lunch and we'd have conversation. And she said, we should write a book together. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, because that's what I do. Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. Thinking, collaboration down the road, maybe sometime. And she said the same thing the next year. And I just looked at her and I'm like, oh, you're serious, aren't you? And she said, yeah, I think we really would, work together well. And so we decided that we would first take a poetry class together. So we went to a Brendan Constantine poetry class at Camera Obscura in Santa Monica, and did this poetry class together, just like a 3-hour workshop or something like that. And then we immediately went for coffee, and we had seen this possibility of going to do a shop pouch residency, a 2-week residency. And we sat down at coffee after we had already opened our creative brains, and we said, okay, so knowing us, what would we do? And we said we would write a story about fairies. And we just sat and just sipped and talked. Yeah, we do this. Oh yeah, what about this? Oh, it could be about this. And so we came up with this idea. Oh yeah, we would call it the last fairy. What if there were, like, like, what would it be like to be the last fairy on Earth? And you're looking around and you're like, what is going on here? Like, all of these buildings and all of these people. And so we just hatched this plan. We wrote it up, we did our proposal, and we were notified at the time of notification. They wrote back to us and they said, we would like to invite you to come and do this 2-week residency. And we called each other and we're like, do you think that's for real? Like, did they make a mistake? And we laughed and we reread it and we're like, I think they really meant it. And so one of the things that we have learned over the course of our working together is we were constantly saying this phrase, I believe in us, because we were second guessing that, it was our first time proposing anything. How could we possibly have gotten a yes? And yet we did. And yeah, so we got to go and stay in the woods in Oregon, and Oregon State University, very close to my heart because my dad had done his PhD at either University of Oregon or Oregon State, and he taught at the other one. And so like the whole Willamette Valley is very, very close to my heart because I was a little girl there. And so I know, like, the spring and the trumpeter swans that come, and they just kind of would take up residence in the fields, which would be full of water from that winter, just pouring down rain. So it was really, really amazing to go back there, to drive through Corvallis, to drive through Halsey, which was the tiny place that I lived. And so we got this 2-week residency, and we would just get up every day. So we stayed close-ish to the cabin. We kind of ventured down to the little streams and stuff, but we stayed pretty close. But we would go out and take our lunches outside, and it just was spectacular. We had all of this time to just sit and dream up this story that we had put into a proposal. It was born in proposal. And then it kind of gestated at this 2-week residency, and was marvelous. We took one trip out to the sea, out to, I think, Newport, and had time out there, and we saw the sea lions, and it just, that came into our story. And so it was really, really a fun, formative time. And when we left to go home, we had the beginnings of a book. And then we started getting together at the Beverly Hills Library because they had a room that we dubbed the Whisper Room, because the first time we went, we figured out with the librarian coming knocking on the door and saying, "You're being too loud." So we called it the Whisper Room, and that has gotten into our story too. So all of the stuff that we are and that we do and that informs us gets into our creativity. And I would say, Becky, as a creative yourself, you probably know that very well, right?
I think it's interesting that you can collaborate with someone else because sometimes your personalities may not mesh. But the fact that you and she are doing that and you feed off of each other, it sounds like it was really pretty awesome.
It was really pretty awesome, yes. And for our first part, we worked separately. We would meet at the library and we would read each other a chapter, and then we would talk about what came next. And it kind of was a slow, it was like building a snowman. At first it's a tiny, tiny little thing, and then it gets a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger. And when the stay-at-home order hit, we figured out quickly that we could hop on Zoom. And we did every week, and we figured out that we could both be writing at the same time. We would say, okay, you write this, I'll write this. And we started to find that we had some overlap. So we would go through and we would, have to take out, oh, I think this is good. This is good. Like, let's blend this part together. End of that chapter, beginning of this chapter.
Mhm.
And we're still working on it. We're working through our first revision. We're not going fast, but we really love our story. So, and we have figured out that our styles for this story are close enough that we don't know necessarily who has written which chapter. So,
Wow.
yeah,
That is quite of a meshing that
yeah,
you can interlap just like that. That is really amazing.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you though, how do you stay grounded with all of the work that you do? And you travel a lot with your husband, Joseph DeBeasi. How do you just kind of manage to have like a place of calm?
Of calm.
Do
So
you even have that? So-
yeah, I know, I know. I have it some of the time. Yeah. So yesterday I arrived in the city and I knew that it would be important to ground myself quickly. And so what I did was I brought with me things that would be grounding. Music is grounding.
Mhm.
And so once I got here and started unpacking, the music went on and calming piano music. Jan Tiersen, um, Andrea Ciletti. There's a piece called The Golden Fly, and she's done a whole bunch of things, The Golden Fly. And it is a fairy tale. And she just has marvelously, it's a Celtic fairy tale, and it's a very unusual, very specific fairy tale. And she made beautiful, beautiful music for it. And so that's one of the things that grounds me. Also, I love to have things on the wall that are familiar, that I love. I brought my blanket with me. Just little things that make me feel like I'm at home, I'm comfortable. There are plenty of times when I'm not feeling grounded, where I feel like I'm, a little bit flying. And I'm constantly, my favorite things have wings. Even in Janine's and my writing, we found a kind of a bee that was like a cross between a bee and a fly, and we called him Flyby, and he has made it into our story. So yeah, we just love wings and flying things, and they are kind of grounding. So yeah, so I brought some artwork to put up. I did bring fridge magnets. So yes, so the familiar things are things that ground me.
Kristen, will you take a minute and read some of your work for us today?
I will. I would love to. Yes. Let's see. I will start with a poem that I wrote on seeing a picture, a piece of art on the internet. And it was about, gosh, the art was the giant catfish at the center of the world that sometimes when he thrashes his tail, this is a Japanese folk belief, is that when the giant catfish at the center of the world thrashes his tail, that's when earthquakes happen. And it is called onomatsu. So I will read onomatsu for you. Onomatsu. If a poem were a word, it could abracadabra you from there to here. Not the word alone, but something behind the word that maybe the poet isn't even aware of. It teeter-totters you. The poet understands because she's left rocking too, like she's on the 23rd floor of a Japanese hotel and the giant catfish at the center of the world has just moved. The poet feels the building sway like a ship because even it is connected to everything. Are you shaken? Moved by the same things that move the poet? She wants you to feel like it means something, has significance, even if it's mundane and you're crying the tears of a life you didn't get to live. And in your desperation, you breathe the prayer of the Buddhist who goes to Pink's hot dogs and says, "Make me one with everything." And they do. You forget the kid you never got to have, the ships that sailed without you. You even forget you were racing to the dock, shouting, "Wait for me!" But the traffic on Rodeo Drive was at a standstill, and your partner wishes they hadn't insisted on that detour, on showing you that thing, whatever it was, that you've both forgotten already. And you arrive at the dock without your luggage, but it doesn't matter. The ship has sailed. You stand too numb to wave at the happy passengers, bouncing their perfect babies and throwing noisemakers so you can celebrate their precious little bundles of joy. But the noisemakers fall short, straight into the brine, and you realize it was never for you, that life. And the meaning of life slips from your grasp. Your mind pulls out an emergency blanket, tries to cover you, says, hold still. You will warm up again. And you realize you've gone cold, really cold. Your mind starts babbling about how things don't always work out, how the Disney family cruise is probably gross. You definitely don't want to touch the buffet table. Too many germs, too much shit that can go wrong. And yet, like the poet, all you feel is the quake of the giant catfish thrashing, the ship rockabying like the 23rd floor of a hotel. The poet is still reeling, and what she desperately wants is to feel like she's one with everything.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. So fairy tales, I mean, still always creeping into my stuff. So
I
yeah.
love it. I love how that's part of you.
It is, it's a big part of me. Yes. Yeah. So let's see. I would love to, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna show off my little chapbook. Um, and I will share about this. I'll show you pages. This was the thing that was born on my fridge. So I've laid out all of the poems, look different, but you can see there's the little sassy fairy chorus responding to the poem, um, pointing at it and saying, "What's up with that?" Okay, so that gives you a view of the cover of it, and the artwork is by a fantastic artist, Wendy Nordell. She's Canadian. And then I just set my fridge magnets on top of it. The truth walks into a fairy tale. And what I would love to do is read the cover poem for that. So I'll stop that share. And then let me just bring up one other poem.
And on the title of that book, you put your name as KB DeBeasi.
Yes, yes, yes. And it's so funny. Joseph and I went to Italy a few years ago, and we were corrected in our pronunciation. And it is DiBiase. So
Oh,
yes, yeah. So we are DiBiase's, though his children still go by the pronunciation that they grew up with, that he grew up with. So, but after we went to Italy and were corrected, we thought, oh, well, maybe we'll be the DiBiase's. Okay, so here is the title poem from that chapbook. So basically, I will repeat a few of the words, but you can see over on the right-hand side the little sassy fairy chorus, and I'll try to sneak those in places. This visual poetry, it just is. It's not the same if I just read it and you just listen to it, but if you take it in with the magnets, as a friend of mine, Manisha said, you just really have to. It makes you slow down to really absorb it. So. Here we go. The truth walks into a fairy tale. A king, a queen, another fine mess. Sees the usual suspects. They are getting ready to play out a new story. Who is beneath, between? The truth asks, what will I be wearing? The skin of an animal? Bear? Wolf? Frog? Donkey? Will I speak volumes? Pay attention this time. Will I speak volumes, be misconstrued, cloaked in secrets, or hidden in a test? Villain, hero, child. I see poison. If I am a drink, will I be hard to swallow? Discovered only after it's too late? Thank you.
it really does make your eyes actually be part of the story. Like you can, especially the words that are, on the side. I love that.
Yes. Yes, yes. And you're always kind of looking like, what are we saying about this? Yes, yeah. So those little sassy fairies are always piping up. Sometimes serious stuff and sometimes super frivolous. Sometimes it kind of makes you burst out laughing. So it I really love doing it. And I really do love, like how do I spell this word? What did I, one of the best things that I was able to spell was bikini industrial complex.
I bet that took some time to find all of that.
It totally did. I've had to alphabetize everything and then to break them into letters, 3 letters. These are 4 letters. These are 5 letters. And then alphabetical from the top to the bottom of each one of those so that I can just reach and then I'll do a magnet. If I can't find the word that I'm looking for in what's already made, I'll turn a magnet upside down so that I know for myself, I've got to spell something else out here. And then I'll do the task of figuring out if there's a replacement word that works as well or better for it, or whether I need to kind of build up my magnets. So I had somebody say to me, yeah, it's kind of like between a poem and a ransom note. I will not share this one, but you can use your imaginations. So this one is called Into the Woods. And it was my first Red Riding Hood one. Everyone knows to sing loudly on your way through the forest, but only somewhat more novel would be how you must always wear a burst of color. And the little sassy fairy says, you need time to take this in. So she finds it at Ross Dress for Quest under a moss green vest, an earth tone top, and brown flats. There it is. And another little sassy fairy says, how do you spell love? A vivid red riding hood. Love thing. Red as good poison. Any wolf worth his dirt would turn around and leave or hide in the bushes. Color is always a warning if we listen. Thank you. So, yeah, so those are my fridge poems. And I showed you the chapbook. It is forthcoming when I get my stuff together. I've just founded a little press called Wild Rampion Press. And Rampion, of course, is from the Rapunzel story. So it is kind of a code about like female desire, because if you remember that Rapunzel story, the mother was, her obsession when she was pregnant with this child was rampion, of course, from another person's garden. And it happened to be a witch who decided she also wanted something dearly, which was the girl. So yes, so it will be forthcoming and very, very soon. Once I get my stuff together, basically. so, so I'm really excited to share. It just is a whole bunch of very familiar fairy tales, but new takes based on my refrigerator and my whimsy. I'll do one. I thought I might focus on winter. And a couple of years ago, they were talking about something like a Christmas star coming back again, if you remember that.
I think so.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I saw that, and I also saw something at the same time about black bears in Alaska not being able to go to sleep, which is not good for them. They need to be sleeping beauties. So I wrote this poem called Berries in Winter. What was it he said about black bears in Alaska this December? How they can't sleep, insomnia rumbling their stomachs like missing berries. And I wonder, how hard can it be to find berries? That's their primary job, finding food. That and raising cubs until they can survive on their own. I think of the strange temps in California, of the way our apple tree doesn't know when to bloom anymore or when to make fruit. The apples grow randomly, sometimes not at all. I remember the year I traveled to cold country to spend the new year with a college friend, bereft at the loss of a teen child. We went to the local Ralph's for berries and other groceries, then to her place to talk out all the things. Her kids came home after the weekend at their dad's wanting pizza, the $4 kind. But when they came into the kitchen and saw what we had set out, the oldest said, "Berries in winter?" To me, it seemed mundane. In California, everything is within reach. But to him, strawberries and snow was like a moose at the equator, or the Christmas star come back 800 years later, those insomniac bears waiting up to see it and looking for berries so they could have their fill before bed. Thank you.
Love that.
Thank you.
Kristen, it's been such a delight having you on Briar House Writes. Tell us about where you can be located.
Okay, you can find me on Facebook. I am on Facebook, and I am listed as Kristen Baum DeBeasi on Facebook. I have just finally plunged into Substack. So I have a Substack that I share just my little random thoughts. And I think, Becky, you might have seen that first one. Yes,
Outstanding in the
which
field.
yes, outstanding in my field. Yes, yeah. Yeah. So hopefully my quirkiness is coming through. I think I used to try to disguise it when I was younger. And now it just is, I just might as well be myself. So that's where I'm going to do that. And my first one was talking about, always sort of standing at the edge of a cliff. And my bags have been packed for a long time, but I just really needed to step off and really understand that I do have wings, that I can fly, and that my creativity is the avenue for that, basically. So let's see. So find me on Substack. And I do have a YouTube channel where I share my art songs that I write. And there might be a piano solo or two that will find their way on to that. And I have end credits for one of the shows. Actually, Joseph did the music for a show called Kidnapped for Christ. And at a certain point, they decided they needed an end credit song. And so they asked me, would I write one? So I wrote Find My Way Home, basically. So that's also on there. And that is kind of the more serious side of me. So let's see. If there's anywhere else. Oh yeah, you can find me at the Fairy Tale magazine now. I am becoming the new editor-in-chief there, so I'm super excited. I'll be living the fairy tale dream for quite a while now.
It sounds like it's really right down your alley. And I'll be
Yes.
curious to see what else is going to be down that alley and what magical creatures will come out as a result of your tenure there. That'll be so cool to
Yes,
see.
yeah.
Well, Kristen, I just know that 2025 is going to be a great year for you creatively. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Becky. It's just been so nice to talk with you.